information that the adequate notice of this meeting was provided in accordance with the Open Public Meeting Act. The notice has been posted in the Board of Education office, junior high school buildings. The notice was also mailed to the press of Atlantic City, Asbury Park Press, and filed with the municipal clerks of Bass River, Eagleswood, Little Lake Harbor, and the Borough of Tuckerton. Roll call, please.
Mr. Williams.
Here.
Ms. Pakakua is not here right now. Ms. Chambers.
Here.
Ms. Palladino.
Here.
Mr. Rossetti.
Here.
Ms. Harper.
Here.
Mr. Dahlia.
Here.
Ms. Hannadel.
Yes.
Mrs. McFadden.
Yes.
We
Can you
have a
reach
quorum
out
on
to
the
me,
board.
say she'll be 10 minutes late, so she's on her way. All right, we're gonna ask for a motion to move into executive session. Resolved that the Board of Education meet in closed session to discuss matters as listed below. Attorney-client communications, a settlement update agreement, personnel grievances, and personnel matters. There shouldn't be more than a half an hour. Can I have a motion?
Motion.
Second.
Are there any questions?
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, we're in executive.
open our regular meeting, read the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge of allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I'd like to welcome everyone. It's nice to see a large crowd, friendly, happy faces. And with that, I'd like to have a motion to approve the agenda.
Motion. Second?
So yeah, just confirm that we don't have to modify them.
Okay.
Your business.
Yes, we do for the one we discussed.
So we're gonna, first a motion to modify the agenda to include new business item 1, the settlement agreement that was discussed in executive session.
Okay. Need to read that or just make that motion?
We would
Or
just
ask
make,
for that motion?
just ask for that motion.
All right, I'd like to ask for the motion to modify the agenda to add under new business, the recommended motion to approve the settlement.
Motion. Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Yes. Yes.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion to amend carries. Now a motion to approve the amended agenda.
All right, with that, I'd ask for a motion to approve the amended agenda.
Motion.
Second. Thanks, guys. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
All righty, we'll ask then for a motion to approve the minutes of the regular session and executive session, January 29th, 2020.
Motion. Second.
Any questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
With that, we will have the superintendent's update. I'm scared there for a second.
No, one
else
motion.
I wanted to do.
It's not.
There we go. So as we're getting ready for the presentation to warm up, you have a pink folder in front of you, and that is a copy of this presentation as well as some linked data for your reference. I'm going to put both of these in the folders that I've created that will be presented in May when you're ready to do my evaluation. I'm going to have supporting documentation for both of the goals as well as each aspect of the superintendent evaluation. So if you want to hang on to this till then, that's great. If not, it will be in the folder. Okay, so goals and district updates. On the right-hand side, the two goals for the district as well as my merit goals for the year are math and social and emotional learning. We're going to be reviewing some math benchmark assessments, professional development, and Mr. Baronato's accomplishments and his assistance with that. In terms of social and emotional learning, we're going to go over some mental health homebound data as well as some work that the resilience team has been doing. One of the board members had asked for an update on dual enrollment, Orton-Gillingham, credit recovery, and Jags, so we're going to be going through that as well. So first, I'm going to quickly go through some math data. This is the data from the NJSLA from last school year. This is only math. To your left is a snapshot of our scores with our regular ed, and to the right on each of these slides will be our special ed students. The reason I'm highlighting them is because that aligns more with my merit goal, but I wanted you to have information on both. So you can see in terms of math, and this would be any student not taking Algebra 1, Geometry, or Algebra 2. Overall proficiency, so your goal here is to be in the green or the dark green. The colors don't always correspond, and I'll show that on some slides to come, but you can see the overall scores in both of those. So if you add them together, I know it's difficult if you're sitting in the audience, but there's 29% here and about 3% exceeding. So a little over 30% met standards on the math assessment. Algebra 1, you can see our scores are going up a little bit, We have about 34% that were proficient on that. And this is a group that we're targeting as well, the ones that are kind of on the cusp that we're trying to get over to meeting or exceeding standards. And once again, to your right are the special ed numbers on Algebra 1. Algebra 2 data, and I just want to point out on this slide, if you look over here to the right, there were 2 students in each of these categories. Pay no attention to the color. For whatever reason, our program pulled the wrong color on this, but if you look at the tabs at the bottom, these 2 students met expectations and these 2 students exceeded expectations. And then these would be regular ed on this side. Geometry, we had 214 regular ed students take that assessment and about 33 met expectations, and special ed, we had 24 students take that and about 29 met expectations. This is why this is our goal for the year in math. Now, this is some of our in-house data. Through OnCourse, Mr. Morgan had assisted the teachers with creating benchmark assessments, and these are the results of those. If you look, you couldn't put it all on one slide, but basically anything in green is where the students met the standard. Anything in red, they did not meet that standard. So we can actually hone down very deeply and see which standards they're doing well on and which ones we should focus more attention on. But the overall average on this pre-assessment, which is information they haven't learned yet, was 29.28% on regular ed. And the mid-year now, they're up to almost 40%. And special education in the beginning of the year, the average score was 23%, and now mid-year we're up to 33%. So they are making progress. Some of the things that we've done in the math department that enacted this change, we have standard-based assessments, and you saw the results of those in OnCourse. They're doing that 3 times a year now. There's a pre-assessment, a mid-year assessment, and an end-of-the-year assessment, all based on the same standards to see the growth and progress. We have formative assessments that teachers can use daily, which are online programs, Edulastic and EdSite, and OnCourse can be used as that as well. Teachers can create those assessments themselves. We have some new resources that we have infused into the curriculum, Envision Math. We have some new technology resources, and Mr. Baronato has ordered some samples for Algebra 1, Algebra 2, and Geometry for the teachers to pilot to see what they like that we could possibly implement next school year. And lastly, there's been an array of professional development, mostly held by Mr. Baronato. He's done some math workshops, he's worked with them in PLCs, he's showing them how to differentiate their lesson plans and their grading practices, and really teaching them to make data-based decisions. Social and emotional learning has been another goal for the school year. Our resiliency team, held by Miss Amy Nass, who's been amazing this year, has trained a group of volunteer teachers. These are teachers that are staying after school with Miss Nass to learn about different strategies and what social emotional learning is, are volunteering their time after school to work with her. They've had 4 trainings so far, and next year they're going to be turnkeying that information to train the entire staff. We have a mental health specialist that is working part-time in the district, Mr. Tom Hand. He's been absolutely amazing. He comes with years of experience. He's had 41 referrals so far this year. He has decreased home instruction about 14% by providing services and keeping students in school. He works with both intervention teams closely. He's worked with Child Study Team and the 504 coordinators. He's been given individual counseling and therapy. He's worked with families, and he's supporting many students with substance abuse issues. This is some more information on social and emotional learning. A lot of this I already reviewed with you. It's just more detailed for your information. Here's some more information on Amy Nass's work with the resilience team. They had 4 trainings so far, and what they're learning about is called ACE. It's the Adverse Childhood Experience Study. Basically what it's telling us is that students that come with some issues from their life, with neglect, abuse, maybe dealing with death or witnessing domestic violence, do come with different challenges. Amy is teaching our teachers how to identify that those students are coming in with those challenges and how to look at them a little bit differently and be more understanding. what she's showing them is the research that the brain is actually developed and changed in an adverse way, and this can affect not only their socialization in school, but their education. Here are some things that she has implemented with that team. There are 4 pillars: calming themselves down in regulation, regulating students, forming connections with them, getting to know them outside of being in the classroom, and teaching kids the science behind brain development to let them know that what they're coming to school with is not their fault and that they can find the tools to work with it. And the overall mantra is changing from what is wrong with this child to what happened to this child and how can I help them. One of our amazing programs that have been implemented this year is the Jags program, Jobs for America's Graduates. It's just amazing. Every time you walk into this classroom, you just feel this sense of energy, and it's just so much different than your traditional classroom. We have 38 students actively involved in this program. Some of the community service things they've done are voter registration drives, Thanksgiving food drives, toiletry and blanket drives for the homeless. They've had 20 speakers, including branches of the military, a dental hygienist, chiropractors, and they have some more speakers coming, such as a veterinarian, a nurse, and a social worker. I myself have been in there numerous times, and it's just wonderful getting to speak with the students. Some of the trips they've gone on, you can see up there, and these are trips that are geared towards careers for them and to kind of open their eyes to different things that they can go into after high school. Some of the positive outcomes have been increase in student employment, increase in community service, student-led career leadership, students' connections to our community, and new partnerships. And we've gotten donated from one of these organizations that we work with in this program, 28 Chromebooks, one for each one of the students that are in this program. I know we mentioned that we have 38 students, but those students already had a one-to-one through another initiative. So that's why there's only 28 there. And we haven't looked at it deep enough yet, but I believe there is increased attendance because of students being in this program, and that'll be something in my final year update. Some other programs I'll briefly go through. Dual enrollment. Hello. Dual enrollment, credit recovery, and Orton-Gillingham. So first, dual enrollment. These are the programs we are currently offering this school year. We have 2 in social studies and 2 electives. And once again, dual enrollment means that students are getting college credit in these classes. And for 2020, 2021, when we have another academy starting, you can see all of the courses that we're going to be running concurrently with a college. Orton-Gillingham is a program that we use that either the teacher can be trained in Orton-Gillingham and is teaching those students in that specific strategy, or we're using a program called Just Words, which is for those students that may not have gotten a phonics base when they were in elementary school. For example, in elementary school, we use foundations. If the students by 3rd grade don't grasp those concepts, we put them in Just Words, and that is a 1 to 2 year intense phonetically based program. We have, really? Someone doesn't want me to speak. All right, I can yell. We had a trainer, her name is Ruth Welsh. I've met her many years ago in Upper Township. She's amazing, and she trained many of our teachers in this practice. And you can see these are the students that we have in junior high right now using the Just Words program. School-based youth services, I know this wasn't on there for you to request an update, but Karen Kenny, who's awesome, actually sent me this information and I wanted to share with you all of the students they're seeing. And you can see by these numbers, they're extremely busy. They're doing so much for our students and the community, and we're really lucky to have this service in our school. And that's what I have for this year. My mid-year update is complete. I will give another update in May with final data. And does the board have any questions at this time? Kim?
I don't know if you know the answer. Do you know how many students are in dual enrollment classes total?
Gina has her academy, and there's 13.
13 in the OCC World History class.
Okay.
I don't know off the top of my head. I
Yeah.
think it's another 10 students that are taking Spanish and US history.
Okay, thanks.
Any other questions? Sorry, I can scooch. All right, thank you.
Thank you.
I'll go through this quickly. I know I mentioned Tom Han as our mental health part-time expert. He actually reached out to me and wanted to know if he could look into the money that Governor Murphy has set aside for mental health initiatives in schools. There's not a lot of information yet in terms of how much money and how do you get it, but Tom asked if he could spearhead this, and he's gonna look into that and try to get money for us beyond what we have now. As per the teacher's contract, well, actually the PEA contract, we are required to have committees that consist of board members as well as teachers and Mr. Reed, who is the president. So if you're interested in being on one of those committees, the purpose is really to just to talk about any issues that may be happening in the schools and to avoid grievances and to make sure that we're providing a safe environment. So we're planning on meeting before board meetings. So if that's something that you're interested in, can you please let Betty Ann know? Just shoot her an email. Community outreach, thank you, Pat, for sending me that email. I did ask if any of the board members had ideas, and Pat did send me a very detailed email. Thank you so much. I just wanted to follow up on some of what she had sent to me. In terms of the app and the social media, Twitter, we do have an app, it's still in existence, but people didn't like the apps because they were more prone to use social media. So James is looking into refining that and making it a little more user-friendly. We've also worked with the Cat Eye, and we are on Facebook and Twitter, and maybe we can use Instagram a little bit more, but those were great suggestions by Pat. We do have district hashtags, and I think maybe Pat was looking to do just one. We are Pinelands Junior High, Eye on the Pride, and Cats Community. So that's something that we can definitely look into. Then lastly, about the Student Advisory Committee, we do have an advisory committee both in the junior high and high school for students. If you're thinking maybe we need one in conjunction with parents and community members, that would be great. And I loved your other ideas about going out in the community and doing something for our senior population. So I think that's something that we can look into, the community centers in each one of those clubhouse. What we did was really neat, we're actually doing Friday, is some of our drama students are traveling to the elementary schools to put on a little part of the play to show them what it's like to have them come out and see the whole thing. So we can probably do something similar.
I think I put that in there.
Yes.
Possibly the drama students.
Yep, and you had about a culinary night too.
Right,
So I'm gonna start sharing these out with the
Okay.
appropriate people, and then I'll share your ideas with the board if that's okay.
Sure, no problem,
Thank you for doing that.
no problem.
Just make sure I'm not missing anything. I have one more thing. I did reach out to Marianne Friedman, as I said I would, and what we would like to do is a combination training with Marianne Friedman and Amy, because Amy's with us all the time and make sure that everybody's on the same page. I shot an email to Marianne Friedman to see if she was in agreement with that. She would love to. She sent me some dates, so I can forward these to the board as well to see what works for everybody and Amy. There's some in March and there's some in April. Good? Okay, that's all I have.
Thank you. Alrighty, monthly attendance report.
Same thing with the disciplines.
Okay.
Facilities, and the facility side.
So there's no discussion on these items. We'll move on to presentations.
Do you have a facilities update?
Well, Dr. McCooley,
Yes.
is there a facilities update or not today?
No.
We'll move on to presentation, the Governor's Educator of the Year recipients.
Good evening. Good evening, Board. Dr. McCooley. I'm honored to be the one to present these Governor Educator Awards tonight. And I'm going to start with the first one from the high school. And I'll read a little statement and then I have an award. So if you have, I see some of you in the audience. If you have family members here, please come up after I read the statement. Our first recipient is Mrs. Donna Trinelli. Mrs. Donna. Donna Trinelli has taught at Pinelands since 1989. In her 31 years of service to this district, she has seen several of her own students return as teachers. And often, many of her students who have chosen other career paths have returned to visit their beloved Signora Trinelli. In her words, teaching Spanish at the high school level is my life's passion. My students are the center of my teaching practice. My hope is to walk alongside them, to motivate them in every step, and to witness how they grow from inexperienced adventurers to language experts. Congratulations on being selected as this year's Teacher of the Year for the high school. Thank you for your service to the students and staff of our district and the Pinelands community. Mrs. Trinelli and family. Congratulations. Our next Educator of the Year from the high school is Mrs. Donna Jones. Are you here, Mrs. Jones? There she is. Donna Jones has been a social worker with the Child Study Team here at Pinelands since 2005. Donna works with many of our students who are struggling with issues both in and outside the school. In her words, Donna says, "Can you imagine being 15 years old and not sure who to talk to? I absolutely love being the one. They trust me, and I believe I have their best interest at heart. It takes time and quality to develop that trust, but it's all worth it." Congratulations on being selected as this year's Educational Services Professional of the Year for the high school. Thank you for your service to the students and staff of our district and the Pinelands community. Mrs. Jones? Congratulations again, Mrs. Jones. Our next Governor's Award recipient from the junior high is Mrs. Tony Ann DeFrancia. Tony Ann DeFrancia has been teaching science at Pinelands since 2002. In her second year with the district, Tony Ann became involved in our award-winning theater program and has been the choreographer for all of the shows since then. Working alongside her husband, Bart DeFrancia, also a teacher in the district and our theater director. In her words, "I have many fond memories with my students and fellow teachers. I feel a great connection to this community and look forward to many more years of educating Pinelands students. Once a Wildcat, always a Wildcat." Congratulations on being selected this year's Teacher of the Year for the junior high. Thank you for your service to the students and staff of our district and the Pinelands community.
Man, it's cramped in here tonight. It's kind of like it a little bit.
He's at rehearsal.
Congratulations again, Mrs. DeFrancia. And last but not least, Christina Colello. There she is in the back. Christina Colello has been a social worker here at Pineland since 2008. Christina works with many of our at-risk students as a member of the Child Study Team. In her words, working at the Pinelands Regional School District over the last 12 years has allowed me to collaborate with professionals and community members to serve our students' lives. Christina is also a member of the United States Army. Give it up for that. And we are so grateful for her service. Congratulations on being selected as this year's Educational Service Professional of the Year for the junior high. Thank you for your work on behalf of the students and staff of our district and the Pinelands community. Christina. Thank you and congratulations again.
All right, moving along to student presentations. Do we have anybody from the junior high school or the high school here tonight?
The high school, maybe for sure.
Good evening, board. I'm Emily English, student body president. On February 11th, throwers from the boys and girls team competed in the Southern Throwdown. Elizabeth Makar updated the Pinelands record book once more, beating her old school record with a throw of 44 feet, 11.75 inches. This throw not only broke the school record, but it also gave Elizabeth the honor of being ranked 11th across the entire nation. Congratulations to Elizabeth. Our senior takeover day on February 5th was a great success. Over 40 staff members participated, and our seniors did an amazing job taking over as teachers and administrative staff. Thank you to everybody who participated in this fun tradition. For the past 2 years, our Interact Club has worked with Together We Rise. Those missions is to make the transition for children out of their difficult home situations into foster care a little easier. Children moved to foster care have little or no time to gather their belongings, and oftentimes they put whatever they can into a garbage or grocery bag. TWR offers sweet cases, which are duffel bags sponsored, decorated, and filled with clubs by clubs and organizations who in turn arrange for delivery to local child advocacy groups who use it when needed. I am proud to say that we have sponsored 30 bags and an amazing amount of supplemental items with the help of over $1,900 in cash and merchandise donations. The high school advanced sports marketing students were busy organizing and orchestrating 2 event operations this month. One was the girls' basketball game on February 3rd, and the second was the boys' basketball senior night game on February 11th. The event theme was lighting up the dome. Both event operations were a big hit, bringing in larger than normal crowds of people who wanted to be part of a fun fan experience. The sports marketing students did a phenomenal job creating a college-like atmosphere by playing music and pumping up the crowd, bringing big heads, handing out glow sticks, implementing a candy toss, launching t-shirts into the crowd, running halftime contests, and using a homemade kiss cam to allow fans to leave more than just memories. These event operations were so successful that even the next day, the school was all abuzz, talking about what a great time was had by all. The players loved them, the fans loved them, and the advanced sports marketing kids loved creating and implementing the whole process. Thank you. Have a great month until I see you next month.
Okay, so for the junior high, what's going on at the junior high? Pride is holding a collection drive for the Providence House, which is a women's shelter in Ocean County. The collection is being held until March 6th. Donations will be sent with students or can be dropped off to the main office here and labeled to Mrs. Leek. The Math Club is currently working on planning their Pie Day, which is going to be March 13th. Of course, you're all more than welcome to come and stop by and get some food. And then the winter edition of the Wildcat Press is actually digitally available on our website, so there's some great things in there if you want to check that out. We're going paperless. As far as PTSO goes, it's always nice to see everybody. Our next meeting is March 16th. I would love to see you all out here at 6 p.m. We are holding a job career fair on March 19th at the High School Media Center. It is in the evening. Amanda Feldman with School-Based Youth Services and I have coordinated and teamed up. She's doing a day one on the 11th, and I'm doing a night one on the 19th. So if you're interested in showcasing your business or your career, please reach out to me, and that would be awesome.
Why is Pi Day on the 13th and not the 14th?
Oh, I don't know.
Saturday.
Maybe it was a misprint. I don't know. She just sent it to me. I just copy and paste.
3/14 is
Oh.
Saturday.
Oh, because the 14th is a
Okay.
Saturday. Very good, thank you very much. That's a really great question. And that's about it. So if anybody, again, we're doing our career job fair on March 19th in the evening, so community members can come out and they can maybe get a job. There's a lot of people that have reached out for that, and then we're encouraging the kids to go, obviously, to see careers that are available to them in the area. Thank you very much and have a great evening.
Thank you.
Thank you. Moving on to Mr. Shore, Students of the Month, please.
Good evening, everyone. Dr. McCooley, members of the board, all of the wonderful people that are here. On behalf of the junior high school, it is my pleasure to present our Students of the Month for January. First up, we will start with 7th grade, and it is a privilege to introduce you to Sal Palladino. Sal here? There he is. How you doing, man? Okay? Congrats once again. So here is what Miss DeSimone and Miss Molesky have to say about you and your accomplishment. Sal is a great example of pride every day, the Wildcat way. He comes to class with a smile on his face, very motivated, and always willing to lend a hand to a fellow classmate. Sal is a great role model and sets a positive example. He is also polite and respectful to his teachers as well as his classmates. Sal works hard and pays attention to detail, making sure his work is accurate. His exemplary grades reflect his hard work and dedication. We are so proud and excited that Sal was named Student of the Month. Keep up the great work, Sal. Congratulations, Miss DeSimone, Miss and Mrs. Molesky. And congratulations once again. Proud of you, buddy. Keep up the good job. And up next, is a privilege to introduce everyone in the room to our 8th grade Student of the Month, and that is Austin Brophy. Austin? Congratulations. You're very welcome. And this is what Mrs. Raver had to say about you. Dear Austin, congratulations. You were nominated by me, and then you won the Student of the Month award. This is a great accomplishment. You come prepared to class every day, and you are a diligent worker. I am thrilled to let you know that you are receiving this award. I hope you realize that even though sometimes class is hectic, your level of maturity does not go unnoticed. I look forward to hearing about your successes in the high school next year. I hope that you can keep in touch and share with us your former teachers, not old teachers, when you decide the path that you are going to take with your college and career choices. Congratulations again. Tell your parents that they're doing a great job. Thank you, Mr. and Mrs. Brophy. Sincerely, Mrs. Raber. Congratulations, buddy. So just one other thing, I'd also like to congratulate our Educational Services Professionals of the Year and our Teacher of the Year one more time. Great job. We appreciate all your hard work, and thank you for everything that you do. And without any further ado, I will pass the podium over to our high school principal, Mr. Troy Henderson.
All right, first up, grade 9, Cadence Arleth. Are you here, Cadence? Come on up, Cadence. All right, Cadence teacher writes, Cadence is a hard worker who always is willing to help her peers when they're not understanding material. She is also never afraid to ask for help when she needs it herself. She maintains good grades while also playing on the girls' basketball team. Although she isn't always the first to volunteer in class, she is always willing to participate when called on. Cadence is a pleasure to have as a student, and it's a joy to watch her grow and develop as a math student. Congratulations. Next is Elijah Sipthanfu. Are you here, Elijah? Oh, couldn't make it tonight. All right, Elijah's teacher writes, the work that Elijah does in algebra is always on par, and he is consistently asking for more work to help him further his understanding. He is never satisfied with anything other than an A, and he will do whatever he can to correct the things he may have gotten wrong on his assignment. While he is very quiet in class, he will participate willingly when called on. He also helps the students around him when they are struggling with a concept. Great job, Elijah. And let's see, is Courtney here? Courtney Burns? Come on up, Courtney. Courtney is very deserving of this Student of the Month, her teacher writes. She is a super hardworking and very diligent. She does not let setbacks hold her back. Instead, she uses it to motivate herself to do better. She's great to have in class and never fears asking questions when she does not understand the material. It is clear that her learning is a priority. Courtney also works hard in her extracurricular activities, and her bowling average just keeps improving. Having Courtney around just makes the day better. Congratulations. And last but not least, Avery Maskey, who I don't think was able to make it this evening. He's our senior, and his teacher writes, Avery is a great all-around student. His positive, upbeat personality makes him a pleasure to be around. He juggles school, work, sports, and a job, yet he never complains. Thank you for being such an amazing student, Avery.
Next up, we'll have Nick Brown with a budget presentation.
It's warming up, guys.
Yeah.
All right, this is a very brief presentation. We're going to quickly cover the budget process that the board's budget committee and the business office goes through. And I apologize for reading some of this, but we took the time to write it, so I want to make sure it comes across the way we intended. So the purpose of this is we want to gain a detailed description of our building and department level needs based upon our mission statement, our goals, and our projected enrollment. We collaborate. It's about understanding and transparency during the budget process. We provide a lot of information to the admin and to the budget committee. And it's to provide the community, everybody in this room, with an understanding of the budget process, and hopefully you leave this tonight with that. And this is a really important thing. We got to use the budget as a long-term planning tool. And so our mission statement, as a reminder, the Pinelands Regional Public School District is dedicated to creating a positive cultural and space to encourage lifelong, personalized learning opportunities for students, staff, families, and community members. We're supportive, we're innovative, and we're enriching lives. Some district goals. The district will foster the development of each learner through best practices in the areas of curriculum, instruction, and assessment. The Pinelands Regional School District will utilize best practices to foster the growth of each learner and staff member to ensure a safe and nurturing learning environment. The Pinelands Regional School District will develop and utilize the most current and reliable demographic data to guide decision-making. And the district will also improve and maintain its facilities in order to provide a safe, efficient, and appropriate learning environment for each of the students. Here's a little bit of a timeline. In November, December, this is when we're meeting with program managers, administrators, and starting to begin the budget building process. We get, in this November period, we have enrollment projections for the following year, and we're meeting to review our staffing accounts. This time of year, in Jan and Feb, this is when we're back in with our administrators. This is our least pleasant interaction time with administrators, right? Yes. This is when we slash budgets to try to match up to our decreasing revenues. This is also when we begin to meet with the Board of Education and the Budget Committee. Next week is a big marker for us. We have the governor's budget address on the 25th. State aid figures are released on the 27th. We do anticipate losing state aid again this upcoming year. And then the next 2 months ahead of us, this is going to be continued budget discussion, board member meetings for review, comment, and questions, and in April, a public hearing and a final adoption of a budget. Here's some important dates. I talked about the governor's address next week. In March, we have the meeting. I believe we're on the Wednesday, the 18th. That's when we'll adopt the tentative budget. There will be continued discussion on that tentative budget until the county approves it. And then at the April meeting, we will adopt the final version of the budget and make it available for review in the business office. That is it. If you have any questions, please feel free to talk to me afterwards. Thank you.
Thank you, Nick. Yes, at this time, if you were selected as a student of the month and would like to get up and read and go home and work on some homework or have dinner, whatever the case may be, you're welcome to. If not, we'll go ahead and move on with the agenda. But we'll give you a minute or two if anybody wishes to leave. All right, moving on to the work session, board forum. Are there any questions? With that, report from, I'll ask for Kim to give her report on our equity meeting and Ocean County meeting.
Wasn't a lot this one. The equity meeting is, the equity committee is pretty new. Oh, sorry, so the equity committee for the state is pretty new. Basically, one thing that came out is that in the budget numbers, social emotional learning and equity will probably be part of that. It's gonna have to be detailed, probably coming up, not yet. But nothing that new there. What's it? And basically because the New Jersey School Board's website is still being worked on, the evaluations aren't available yet, and should be by middle of March. I don't have much else.
Thank you, Kim. The question and answer procedures. Is that something you wanted to?
So, no, Karen had asked if we could put that on there for discussion, so Karen, did you have a question?
Yes, so you had sent to all the board members a revised structure for the Q&A, and I just felt that it warranted a board discussion to make sure the procedures were changing. I don't know if it works for everyone. I know instead of it being more of a fluid document, you are requesting that we send the questions directly to you, and you will return a response all at once the day of the board meeting.
Correct.
I will say that does not work for me with my work schedule. I cannot commit to be available to spend a few hours the afternoon of the board meeting.
So I know you originally
Questions?
asked Betty Ann if we could have it earlier that day, so we said, you had suggested 11 a.m. and we did change
No, I
it.
did not. I think Betty Ann did. I would like to see it the night before.
The
At a
night before.
minimum, I actually wonder if we could go back to the more fluid Q&A approach,
So-
where we would post a question and you would answer it.
So there were a couple of problems with the Q&A document. Number one, it really stopped being a clarification document and it became more of a discussion. I suggest that this board member go to this, or can we add this to the agenda? And that wasn't the purpose of it when I created that initially. Before I was here, I know that Dr. Stevenson had the board members email her questions, and then she tried to send a summary out to the board to clarify those. So the purpose is really clarification of agenda items the day before the board meeting or 6 o'clock. I have no problem doing that.
I guess my point was, this isn't just about me though. I feel like there's 8 other board members and I don't know if it works for others or not. So I just thought it would be helpful to have a discussion when we're all here together to find out.
It was being emailed.
Yeah, and we also had a workshop meeting at that point in time. So I just feel like there's never time for a board discussion. It's just we're receiving information all the time. And I appreciate, the input from the other board members to hear their perspectives, and I feel like we've lost that.
But you can't give your input and perspective on a Q&A document because, like Mr. Jolly said, it's now becoming a discussion.
Correct, so maybe somehow we need to get back to having the discussion on topics. I feel like we don't do that anymore.
I have to respectfully disagree that there's a lot of discussion that happens with the board, especially when we have board of the whole and on agenda items that we have at the board meeting. And really, the purpose of it was clarification if you had a question about something. And it doesn't preclude you from picking up the phone and calling me or calling Nick and saying, can we have a discussion on this item? I don't really understand this.
I guess my thought is there's some benefit to when we all get together. We used to have workshop meetings. When you came on board, we did reduce those. And we said we would be willing to work that. I don't know if that's the solution, bring that back. And again, it isn't about me. For me, the timeline really didn't work, but I don't know what others' thoughts are as far as does the timeline work for them or not, or do they feel everything's fine?
I thought that the cutoff time was a little tight.
The cutoff to ask the question or to get the response?
To get the response back, they should be able to have an opportunity to, I know it's hard on you guys.
No, it's fine. We can definitely do it the night before.
But it kind of doesn't leave enough time.
Sure, we could do it the evening before, so that our meetings are at 5:30 executive, we could do 5 o'clock the day before.
I think it's important that the board feels comfortable making sure that if they have questions, they have an opportunity to get information before you're asked to vote on something. And I think that's very clear. That's what the law requires. So I think whatever you as a board collectively think is the best way to do it is what you guys should get together and decide on. One of the things for the work session that you mentioned, you could always, if anybody has a topic or something you want to discuss, you could always ask Betty Ann to add it to the agenda as well. Because I believe, I could be wrong, but I believe that Betty Ann works with Melissa to create the agenda.
Yes, those can.
Right, yes, that's good.
Done, Karen? Yeah, the timeline really doesn't work, and in the past, it was the Thursday before that the agenda would go up, by noon the Thursday before. And the other thing is not knowing what the thoughts are of the other board members. And if you ask a question on the Q&A this way and you're not getting it until 12 noon that they have a meeting, now I don't know what everybody else's availabilities are, but that is real tight. And the other thing is that we as board members are entitled to the information so that we can make an informed vote, as Amy has just stated. And I really think some of this precludes that from occurring.
So you're getting the information, you're getting the agenda the Friday before the Wednesday meeting. So you're getting the information. The point of the Q&A was if you had a question about what something was, you could still ask a question all from Friday to Wednesday. If 11 o'clock in the morning is too tight for the board to read it at a 5:30 meeting, I understand that. We can definitely summarize any of your questions and give that out the night before.
So my only problem with that is sometimes it's Wednesday morning before I get to look at it. So can I ask you another question at that point? And you can send out another thing? Or just wait
Well, then
until the week?
there wouldn't
the
have a
meeting?
point to have a deadline.
Okay.
Because then it would just keep going back and forth.
I mean, to look at it all, that's all I was thinking. Okay.
Well,
Or a follow-up question.
before it
Right,
was
follow-up.
Thursday by noon, that the agenda would be posted. And I think, Monday afternoon or whatever, for that to be answered so that if there was any follow-up questions, at least you have time.
So we have the agenda done by Thursday afternoon, and Betty Ann and Kim get it. The problem is we were sending it out, and if one link wasn't ready, we were getting pushback from that. And not all the attachments are ready by Thursday afternoon. So that's why by Friday, before we leave for the day, we make sure that all the links working, everything's done, and that's sent out to you Friday evening, Saturday, Sunday, and Monday, Tuesday, and then Wednesday's the board meeting.
I didn't have a problem doing it this way, I'll be honest with you. I think my only concern was that we came in January at the reorg. We decided that this is the way we were going to run things. I know Betty Ann was gracious enough to put out and say to us that she liked the Q&A and her update and she wanted to continue to do it that way. I think I would have preferred maybe in January or even at this meeting to discuss it as a board of the whole, to see if we wanted to stay with it, or did we feel it needed to be changed and why it needed to be changed, and maybe some ideas of how we could change that. That was my only concern with this. I just felt as a board, we should be discussing it as a whole to decide if we felt it worked, if it wasn't working, and how we could amend that or change it or tweak it a little bit. As far as the time frame, I know the answers came out early this morning, and I'm sure those people that were working were probably very happy with that. I had extenuating circumstances because I was away, and that was scheduled prior to this board meeting being changed, so I had limited Wi-Fi. So mine got cut off in the middle of it on Sunday night, and I was only able to ask 2 questions. But that's okay, that was, you know, the situation I was in for the last week and a half. But that was my only concern. I just would have liked, I feel, all of us to discuss it to see if all of us felt it needed to be changed. Or if it didn't, if it did, what were some ideas on how we can change it? I just.
So, and I can see your perspective. When I implemented the Q&A, we never had a discussion when I implemented it. I just did it because I felt it was a more effective way to answer everyone's questions, everybody can see them. But then there's been multiple times where it became almost a violation of the Sunshine Law, that there's been conversation happening, and then the decision was made when it happened again. And I see your perspective that we should talk about it here, but in hindsight, yes, we could have talked about it at this meeting and then implemented it, but I was concerned that there was much too much dialogue happening, and when I implemented it initially, we never had that conversation. I just kind of changed Dr. Stevenson's way because I thought this would be more effective. I have no issue doing it earlier. If you want the answers the night before, and once again, even after they're sent, if you have a question, just pick up the phone and call me, or call Nick, or call someone that can give you the answer.
So follow-ups that way.
Sure.
Any other concerns?
So questions by,
So
End of
ask
day
the
Monday,
questions by Monday,
I'll
end of the
give
day,
the
yeah.
answers.
By, try to ask your question by Monday morning, midday, and then we can get all the answers, because oftentimes I have to send those out to other people to get the answers.
Is that enough time for you and
Yeah,
the
that,
administration?
that should be fine.
And Nick?
And then by Tuesday, we'll say 5 o'clock, we'll summarize, if it becomes a concern, and we'll let you know.
Okay.
Well, if it's on the agenda, obviously, the administration ought to know what it is and what it's about. But I still have the question as to getting the information to be able to make an informed vote. What was on there currently takes some of that away. That has to come before the whole board to see if it's a question worthy of answering. And that's.
I'm not really sure what you're asking.
So the statute in the state requires the board to be given the agenda with reasonable notice. I would suggest that 5 days prior to the meeting date is very reasonable. Certainly sooner than we provided, and more lead time than we provided in Bass River, in Little Egg Harbor, and in most other districts I've inquired about. So I don't think we're being unreasonable in providing the information well ahead of the board meeting, where you have a chance to review it. And the agenda contains all the information you need to review and discuss things here today. So I'm more concerned about moving any of these deadlines further. All you're doing there is taking working days out of the month, making it more difficult for the business office to process, what is it, $3.5 million worth of payments? It doesn't do anybody any good to push that day up 24 hours. It just hurts the operational side to be able to turn around documents that are accurate and timely.
So then if a question needs to be raised at the meeting, it's gonna have to be raised at the meeting.
If it hasn't been asked and
It should be
answered.
raised in the meeting. Public, it should be raised.
Clarification, sure.
But that's the whole idea. We can't be having discussions about board business outside of the meeting. If it becomes more than just a clarification, then that's what we're doing. So we are discussing it now. We had a chance to live with it for one meeting. We'll live with it for another meeting, see what other kind of tweaks we can make to it to make sure that it's good for everybody. I think pushing it back a little bit so that board members have that information the night before will help a lot. But let's just live with it another month and see, and we'll further discuss it. But this is where discussions need to happen, not in a form.
And just to clarify a comment you made, the intention is to typically answer all of our questions, at least for me. You
Sure.
answer all of the questions. It's not like you're going to select
No,
questions.
absolutely not, right.
So you ask a
Yeah.
question, it
Right,
will be answered.
absolutely. And I'll change the times on that document and resend that out.
Thank you.
And it gives the administration a time frame as to when they know that they need to do this work to answer these questions. Because sometimes it is a lot of work and there's other things that need to be accomplished. So it's better use of our administrators' time. Any other discussion in work session? Moving along, we'll move on to residence forum for agenda items only. Board policy 0167 encourages community participation in every meeting. However, the board requests that the public respect a reasonable time limit when commenting on agenda items. So if you wish to speak to something that's on the agenda, you can do that now. I will just caution everyone that there will be a 3-minute time limit per individual, and that for this residence forum, there'll be a 30-minute max on the amount of time you will spend answering questions or listening to community participation. So with that, is there anybody who would like to speak to agenda items only? Seeing no one, we'll move on to committee reports. I'd like to have a motion to improve the instructional recommendations A1 through A5.
Motion. Second?
Any questions?
Yes. Item 2, the harassment, intimidation, and bullying report, just to follow up to the response. One of the students, is there a return to school timeline estimate?
It's just, we
Sooner
have to,
rather than later?
we have to wait for clearance.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
Any other questions?
All right, roll call, Mr. Williams?
Yes.
Ms. Papakua?
Yes?
Ms. Chambers?
Yes.
Ms. Palladino?
Yes.
Mr. Rossetti?
Yes.
Ms. Harper?
Yes.
Mr. Dahlia?
Yes.
Ms. Hannadel?
Yes.
Ms. McVeigh?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Alrighty, moving on to personnel. I'd like a motion to approve the following personnel items, B1 through B13.
Motion.
Second?
Any questions?
Okay, roll call, Mr. Williams?
Yes, and abstain on B7.
Ms. Papakua?
Can I ask a question? I'm sorry. I thought it was the next section. The extended school year program, why will that be located at Georgetown Mitchell instead of
Because
here?
we're having some construction work done at the junior high.
Okay.
And the high school's just too busy, and it's cheaper to keep everybody in one central location. It's cheaper for all school districts. And Tuckerton, Eagleswood, and Bass River will all be there too.
Okay, thank you.
We had it combined last year as well.
I knew last year because of construction.
Yeah.
I didn't realize this year. Okay, yes, I'm good. Thank you. Yes.
Ms. Chambers?
Yes.
Ms. Palladino?
Yes.
Mr. Rossetti?
Yes.
Ms. Harper?
Yes, with an extension on B13, so the location.
Thank you. Mr. Dahlia?
Yes.
Ms. Hannadel?
Yes.
Mrs. McVeigh?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Moving on to C, operations, I would like to ask for a motion to approve the operations items C1 through C4.
Second, sorry.
Any questions?
Just that I noticed we're shifting board meeting dates again.
Yeah, this is my fault. So the election calendar was available in January, and I didn't look it up till after the meeting. The election calendar, these dates are all impacted by the budget calendar. So we originally had March 25th, assuming it was the closest date to March 20th. The due date for the budget ended up being March 20th, so we had to move it ahead of that date. Same thing for April, we tried to guesstimate the day that we were gonna get. The first day we can hold a public hearing on the budget is April 24th, so we had to pick a date after that. And the May meeting, we actually got to push back because we don't have to have it's not a statutory requirement, it's a second meeting. So that's on me 100%. My apologies to the board. I am aware that that election calendar existed in January, and we'll pull it sooner next year.
Can I just ask the nation if they update the calendar, because I really don't like that, you know, the calendar updates. Calendar-
Yes, the invites,
The
yes.
invites.
Yep.
Oh, yeah. Yep.
Any other questions?
All right, Mr. Williams?
Yes.
Ms. Papakua?
Yes.
Ms. Chambers?
Yes.
Ms. Palladino?
Yes.
Mr. Rossetti?
Yes.
Ms. Harper?
Yes, with an abstention on C1, my children participated.
Thank you. Mr. Dowlia?
Yes.
Ms. Canadell?
Yes.
Mrs. McVeigh?
Yes.
Motion's carried.
Report of the board secretary, business administrator, I'd like to ask for a motion to approve the report of the board secretary, business administrator, items D1 through D12. Motion. Any questions?
Yeah, I have just a clarification. 8D, on approval of the contract for vape sensors. How sophisticated are they? Are they really good?
Yeah.
So
And
we-
they're gonna pick up the difference between
We
the
had
different
bought these
smoke or
before,
something?
Pat, we bought them before,
Oh, okay.
earlier in the school year,
Uh-huh.
and we found a better deal, so we had to wait till the other ones were returned. And this one comes with actually more and some education for, as
Okay.
part of the package. But they not only sense vape, they sense,
I was gonna say.
activity, so
Okay.
if something's breaking,
Right.
a text will go immediately to the administrator.
Right, okay. I was just wondering how sophisticated they really are.
I
to
know
pick
other
up-
districts that use them, it's amazing what they
Really?
can sense, and
Yeah.
even if you can't catch a student down there, you can catch that somebody is doing something at that time, and it's immediate notifications.
Thank you.
And we have a couple from that going in the junior high.
Oh, good, that's even better.
Yes.
All right, thank you for the clarification.
And there was a question about 9 in the document, that attachment's been updated to include
yes.
some supplemental pages. Okay.
And the question on 8C, the school pay, is that replacing, didn't we just approve another vendor?
We approved Stripe as a payment
Yeah.
gateway. Stripe, there's no cost to. That's, and I'm gonna try not to sound like a total knucklehead trying to explain technical payment gateways, but we have the ability with Stripe at no cost to the district to develop ways on our website for people to make payments for things. We ended up not instituting that because it involves a lot of development from our own tech team. We were looking at options, and school pay is the one that we settled on for digital ticketing for events, online ticketing. And this option was pretty comprehensive because it allowed you to fund your school lunch balance. The idea here is that once it's fully implemented, that a parent will be able to log on. They'll see their children's names in there. They can fund accounts for their students, for their children to be able to buy tickets to athletic events, cap and gown, yearbooks, stuff like that. It's just a way that's one central place for money to get put there for the kids to use, and then the mobile ticketing feature is nice because then we get to scan people. It'll get rolled out for the show, for the Mary Poppins.
So I think great convenience for our families. I have the same concern that I had with Stripe, and I'm sure it's typical, but in their clause, it holds them harmless for any data breach, data information stolen. Does the district have protection in
We do have
case of that?
insurance
Does
through
our
New Jersey
insurance cover
SIG.
that?
Yeah, it does, and we've actually checked on with New Jersey SIG this year to confirm we have
We did? Okay.
protection. Yeah, we did,
Good.
because it came up at a
Yeah.
prior board meeting.
Right.
And it's something that, data security is a big issue in school districts right now. There's been a number of districts in the news that got hit with ransomware, and some in Ocean County. I think the closest one to us most recently was Monmouth County, and they, if I'm not mistaken, paid a 6-figure ransom note to be able to get their data back. And so, insurance does cover that for us.
Does it cover ransomware?
There is specific coverage for ransomware, yeah, but I'm not sure the extent of that coverage. I'd have to confirm that.
That's terrible.
Thank you.
No problem. Okay, Mr. Williams.
Yes, on all but D10 I abstain.
All right, Ms. Papakua,
Yes.
Ms. Chambers?
Yes.
Ms. Palladino?
Yes.
Mr. Rossetti?
Yes.
Ms. Harper?
Yes, with an abstention on D2.
You too, thank you. Mr. Dowia?
Yes.
Ms. Hamadel?
Yes.
Mrs. McVeigh?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Okay, under new business, I need a motion to approve the settlement agreement as was discussed in executive.
So moved.
Second?
Any questions?
Mr. Williams?
Yes.
Ms. Papakua?
Yes.
Ms. Chambers?
Yes.
Ms. Palladino?
Yes.
Mr. Rossetti?
Yes.
Ms. Harper?
Yes.
Mr. Dowia?
Yes.
Ms. Hamadel?
Yes.
Mrs. McVeigh?
Yes.
Motion carries.
All right, thank you. Moving on now to residents forum for general topics. Board policy 0167 encourages community participation in every meeting. However, the board requests that the public represent a reasonable time limit when commenting on any topic. We will limit it to 3 minutes. There will be a half an hour time limit on that. I would just like to say to everyone that students are paying attention to what we say and what we do. Children feel anxious when well-meaning adults say something that makes them question their self-worth. I would like to ask everyone wishing to speak to please come from a place of love and compassion. Thank you. Please identify yourself and your address.
My name is Joanna Bartlett. My address is 11 White Oak Lane, Little Lake Harbor. And I'm going to read what I have for you. I'm requesting that you stop teaching any new curriculum that deals with the topic of LGBT until a curriculum is found that is fair and inclusive of all children and is not discriminatory of those that have different beliefs. My first reason for requesting this is the new pilot program is being sponsored and created by 2 political advocacy groups that firmly state their mission is to promote the LGBT agenda. I was not aware that a school district was allowed to support and stand behind a political agenda. And yet when you use curriculum that is created by an LGBT group, and you promote the ideas and philosophies that this special interest group holds while refusing to take any other belief system into account, the board is supporting a political special interest group. This is contrary to your code of ethics. In fact, the law itself does not state that the LGBT agenda must be taught. It states that persons who are a part of this group should be mentioned for their contributions to society. The law is not discriminatory. So why are we at Pinelands making the curriculum discriminatory? Why are we asking students to write on what it means to be an ally of the LGBT movement? This is not what the law has deemed an appropriate way to handle this curriculum. Secondly, the curriculum is handling something that is a controversial issue in a very unethical way by teaching that only one thought on the topic is acceptable. Controversial issues must be dealt with in the curriculum in a way that encourages fair presentation as stated in your board policies and procedures. Teaching that the LGBT agenda is the only way for students to think and be accepted in society without being called bigots is unethical. Not only is it unethical to have this mindset, but it actually encourages harassment, intimidation, and bullying. When one way of thinking is taught, students assume that anyone else that thinks differently than this is not acceptable, especially when it is not stated that any other way of thinking is okay. I would encourage each and every one of you on the board to think about your friends and family and ask yourself this question. Do they all think like me? My friends don't think the same as me, not all of them, and neither do my family. And yet I love and respect them for who they are as people and not what they believe. I can have a relationship with them and love them even though we may disagree on many different ideas or beliefs in life. I'm guessing that you would all answer the same. If we want to teach these students to have the same attitude in life, it is imperative that we allow students to hold to their belief system. We do not teach them that being an ally of the LGBT movement is the only way to think in society. We teach them to respect another person even though their 2 belief systems may not line up. We even teach them healthy debate. In no way is this bigotry or discrimination. It is the very principles that our United States of America were founded upon. It is the very freedom of thought, speech, and religion that our military fights to uphold. And it is the very same freedom that I'm holding to today as I stand and ask you to stop teaching a curriculum that opposes the very thing this country fights to uphold.
Hello, my name is Erin Fitzsimmons, and I live at 117 Lighthouse Drive in Little Lake Harbor. I would like to open my remark by saying my identity as a part of the LGBT community is not a belief system. It is an integral part of who I am. I'm an alumni of Pinelands, and I came out for the first time upstairs in this building, actually. And one of my teachers, I was 12, I was in 7th grade, and one of my teachers said to me that if anybody gives you, pardon my language, any crap about this, that I could come to her. And I wanted to mention this because this is not a new idea of Pinelands supporting the LGBT community. This is just an expansion on the idea that has already been in place that all students belong at Pinelands and all students have a place at Pinelands. I also wanted to mention the age at which I came out, which was 12. I didn't know that Stonewall happened, which is arguably the most important part of LGBT history, until I was 18. I had to do my own research, spend my own money on books of personal accounts of those who were there, and sift through a whole new world of information about a community that I didn't know I had in the most integral time of my life when I was coming to terms with being who I am as an LGBT individual. This curriculum is going to help so many young, questioning, and LGBT children, which there are LGBT children, come to terms with who they are and see that they have a wonderful, amazing, vibrant community and a history bigger than anything that anyone could shout at them in a middle school hallway. If I had had that when I was here, I know it would have helped me realize that I am standing on the shoulders of revolutionaries, as are the entire LGBT community, and I wanted to thank you for having this school, of all schools that somebody would think of, oh, it's a small town, to have this school be a part of such an important pilot program for children that you are going to be changing and saving lives.
Hi, my name is Randy Von Spreckelson. I'm 26, resident of 209 Cox Avenue in West Creek. I have come here today as a former student of Pinelands and a member of this community, as well as the disabled and LGBTQIA+ community. Take note of those extra letters. I invite those of you in attendance to read up about them, both within the acronym and independently from it. I identify as Q, which most often represents queer and questioning individuals. I stand here questioning how many of you understand the significance of my identifier, queer. Queer dates back to the 16th century but gained mainstream modern usage in the 20th century as a slur used against flamboyant and feminine men. It was a word that frequently accompanied violence, harassment, and yes, bullying. It wasn't until sometime in the late 80s that the queer community began to take this word back and attempt to remove its ability to be weaponized against us. That didn't stop me from hearing slurs and disparaging, derogatory remarks in the halls of this school during my attendance, from the mouths of both students and staff. I was not in any same-sex relationships during my time at school. I didn't even have sex until I was well into adulthood. That did not exempt me from bullying and harassment over my perceived sexuality. I'm happily married to a man now, not that it really matters, which affords me straight passing privilege, but doesn't erase my queer identity. I feel strongly that my bullying could have been avoided or diminished if we had representation of notable queer figures in the curriculum, and not just beginning in 8th grade, but from an elementary school level. Humanize us, normalize us. We learn about Cleopatra and Mark Antony, John and Abigail Adams, Marie and Pierre Curie. Why not Michelangelo and Tommaso de Cavalieri, Oscar Wilde and Lord Alfred Douglas, Eleanor Roosevelt and Lorena Hickok? I was taught all about persecution of religious groups through the ages, despite the fact their religious beliefs are counter to my own, as an agnostic secular humanist, and how that persecution created the America we live in today. We learn about figures and heroes of the American Revolution, the abolition and Reconstructionist eras, women's suffrage, the 1950s and 60s civil rights movements. We discuss World War II extensively from an elementary school age, but leave out the persecution of the LGBT and disabled communities, or mention them maybe in passing. The
Just gotta
hypocrisy.
give you a 10-second warning, I'm sorry.
That hypocrisy needs to end. I want to end my 3 minutes by suggesting the opposition to the pilot program read the Wikipedia page detailing the history of violence against LGBT people in the United States. It will take you longer than 3 minutes. Hopefully you will walk away from it with a better understanding of the importance in teaching our youth that the queer community is your community.
Your time is up, I'm sorry.
And it always has been.
Hi, my name is Sharon Sachs. I live at 54 Mayflower Drive, and this is my first time speaking to the board as a community member. So I'm going to begin by quoting the coolest person I know, which is my son, Evan Wyckoff. During a school assignment this year, Evan was asked to watch a short film and provide an analysis of what you saw. The theme of the assignment was acceptance, and this is what my son wrote. What I liked about the short film, In a Heartbeat, is the message within it, which is that we're all different and we all have to accept that. What I didn't like about the short film were the kids who made faces and judged them. I didn't like that part because it's not right to judge other people for any reason. The plot of this movie is two boys like each other but are afraid to admit it because they're embarrassed and don't want to be judged. But in the end, love wins. I am supportive of the LGBT community because my mom is a part of it and she showed me all of the good things that come with it. And I believe that the people who do not accept it need to see all of the good things about it too. And they would accept it after they see that, but they don't allow themselves to see it. My 12-year-old son, who's attending Pinelands this year, wrote that, and with those words, let me know that I matter. Let me say that again. I matter, every part of me. The teacher part of me that wakes up at 5 a.m. to get ready to spend all day working with 9th grade students who sometimes do not want to be taught, who sometimes just want to know, just need to know that you care, who most times try to distract you and succeed, and who every time find a way into my heart where I love them as if they were my own. I matter. The mom part of me that answers phone calls and emails and text messages from parents and students and aunts and uncles and grandparents and listens to the stories and empathizes with what they're going through because I have gone through similar struggles as a single parent in this world as well. I matter. The family part of me that does her best to make sure she checks in at least once a day with her totally awesome, supportive, and completely crazy mom and dad, my father is here tonight, who loves her siblings and the fact that we have annoying group texts and never enough time to drive each other nuts, but still love and accept each other fully. I matter. And finally, most definitely, just as importantly, the gay part of me that waited until she was 35 years old to fully reveal herself to the world, who sat in front of her parents, yes, at 35, and cried as she came out to them, knowing they would support her, but still petrified nonetheless, because it is really scary. It's just so scary. Who recently sat at a restaurant in this town with her parents and her 12-year-old son and experienced for the first time ignorance from another community member that knew who she was but couldn't accept her and be kind to her because she's gay.
10 seconds.
Who then had to explain to her son to not get upset. I matter. And all of you matter too. All of you that identify as part of the LGBTQIA community. Everyone here that's an ally supporting your family members and friends that are part of our community. And even those of you that refuse to support our community, you all matter.
Sorry, your time is up.
Because acceptance is important.
Hi everyone, my name is Thea Gleason. I live at 886 Radio Road. Mom, teacher, community member, and graduate. In my 10th grade English class, my students write a lot. And I love to have them write reflective journal entries for no risk release. They get to write, I don't grade it like I usually do. It's just therapeutic. It's honest, and it's real. Recently, I asked kids to write about school safety. I had them identify something that compromises their safety at school, describe why it is a threat, and offer some ideas, some help of what can we do to address it. Here is one response. Over the years, I've realized that homophobia is becoming more and more common. It's something I realized as soon as I started middle school. Every year it's gotten more and more noticeable, and it's extremely dangerous for people in my community, even if it's not directed towards us. causes people to feel unsafe. It's even led to some, unfortunately, choosing suicide. I've more than once been a target of conversations because I'm transgender. I've had students discuss whether I'm a boy or a girl feet away from me. One time, I told them, so they would stop. But one decided he would tell me that I'm not a guy to my face. My teacher never said to stop. Not enough is being done. I don't talk in most of my classes now. I feel threatened and uncomfortable. That made me hate my voice more than I already did. I don't trust many people. I almost failed that class because of this. The school system has problems, but I'm not going to bring this situation for months to go to guidance, to have it not dealt with again, or to have my parents brought into the situation. I don't want that. Education is the key. The students and the staff need to be more educated on LGBTQ+ students and the normalness of it. Until that, we will be stuck in this place. I will be stuck in this place.
I'll give you a 10-second warning.
This was written by a 15-year-old student, and just to be very clear, this student is my special interest. All 85 students in my roster this year are my special interest, and they deserve us. Thank you.
Peter Cardillo, 48 My Way in Little A. I want to tell you about the first openly gay man to win public office in San Francisco in 1977. Harvey Milk was a homosexual activist, a champion of homosexual experimentation who worked to abolish sexual boundaries. GSE intends to portray him to our children as a hero and a martyr. Here are some details that will not appear in the curriculum. Harvey Milk sought to normalize sodomy, which, by the way, is taught right here in our 9th grade health classes as one of the 3 kinds of sex. Harvey was sexually attracted to adolescent youths and committed a felony in New York by having sex with a teenage boy. Randy Schiltz, a friend and biographer of Milk, writes, Harvey always had a penchant for young waifs with substance abuse problems. One of his young lovers was Jack McKinley, a 16-year-old runaway. After the relationship ended, Jack called Harvey one night threatening suicide. Milk responded that he should try not to make a mess. In a 2018 book entitled Cult City, Jim Jones, Harvey Milk, and 10 Days That Shook San Francisco, journalist Daniel Flint reveals how Harvey Milk and Jim Jones were allies, both men key players in left-wing San Francisco politics in the 1970s. Some of us here will remember the tragic suicide massacre that occurred in Guyana in 1978. Harvey Milk was a fan of Jim Jones, who provided Harvey with a printing press and volunteers to help his campaign. It was a friendship that Harvey found exhilarating. After visiting the People's Temple, he wrote to Jim Jones, quote, "It may take me many a day to come back down from the high I reached today. I was sorry I had to leave after 4 short hours. I found something dear today. I shall be back, for I can never leave." Harvey, the politician, provided legitimacy to Jim Jones and spoke from his pulpit at the People's Temple. Harvey conveyed to President Jimmy Carter and to the Guyanese Prime Minister that Jim Jones was, quote, "a man of the highest character," all of which proved deadly for the 900 victims that Jim Jones led into a cyanide-laced suicide on November 18th of 1978. That same November, San Francisco Mayor George Moscone and Harvey Milk were murdered by a fellow politician named Dan White. White was not a homicidal homophobe, but a hot-headed former political ally who became furious over political betrayal. Gay activists would have us believe that Milk was martyred for his cause. Dianne Feinstein, a fellow Democrat, has stated, quote, "This murder had nothing to do with anyone's sexual orientation." Harvey's entire persecuted hero narrative is built on falsehood. The real Harvey Milk was a scheming gay politician with a preference for pubescent boys. This curriculum will present him as a secular hero.
Here's your
and a saint.
10-second warning, sorry.
Board of Education, please represent this community and not special interest groups, not GSE. Please vote to drop this heavily biased curriculum. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Laura Erber from 205 Flax Court, Little Lake Harbor. I'm a grandparent and a registered nurse. And I attended the last board meeting and the February 5th informational meeting on LGBTQ curriculum. My heart breaks for a child that does not feel comfortable in their physical body, but if I remember correctly, that was about 90% of us when I was growing up. In my profession as a school nurse, I want every child to feel welcome and part of his or her school community. Recently, I heard a facilitator of a professional development class say that children we work with every day happen to be someone else's whole world. And if you're a parent, I think you would agree. With this in mind, I believe schools and parents need to work together to ensure the optimal health and educational development of their students. I'm pretty certain that parents were not adequately represented when the state law NJSA 1836-41 was written, or when the NJDOE wrote guidelines for its implementation. It's pretty obvious to me that this curriculum bill has not even been given proper time or consideration, because I understand the Commissioner of Education, Dr. Repollet, has not even completed the New Jersey State Learning Standards that will guide this curriculum implementation. So to say the least, we have gotten the cart before the horse here, and we need to take a step back, especially with regard to the pilot program. The lessons I looked at from February 5th that were endorsed by an advocacy group, let's just say they left much to be desired. It seems as if they were splattered into the curriculum just to satisfy this mandate without regard to their developmental or moral appropriateness. I do believe parents have the right to direct the moral upbringing of their own children, and sensitive topics like transgender issues are, as they are described in the law, should have the express permission of a parent. Frankly, some of those proposed guidelines are absurd to me and an affront to the morals and deeply held religious beliefs of many students and staff alike. The New Jersey DOE has even taken it a bit further in suggesting that school personnel keep the child's sexual identity confidential and create 2 files for this child, one legal one and one that identifies them according to their feelings on gender. We are going down a very dangerous road when we are defining a child solely based on their feelings. There's a documented research that many transgender children desire to return to their biological sex, anywhere from 60 to 90% of them, depending on what study you look at. But this research is compelling enough to say that we should not be affirming sexual identity and creating
I'm gonna give you a
files.
10-second warning.
Okay, new files on these children based on their feelings. We also heard from the GSE advocacy group February 5th about the medical communities affirming transgender people, but they couldn't say that children
I'm sorry,
are
your
born.
time is up.
Okay, I just would implore you to look at that curriculum again, and I have some information, a resource guide for all of you. I made copies. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Jennifer Fowler. I'm at 115 Willow Landing Terrace in Tuckerton Borough. This is also my first time addressing the board, and I appreciate the opportunity to do so, as well as the comments from both sides that were presented tonight. When I first heard about the curriculum, I thought, well, I don't believe in evolution, but the school teaches that, as well as creationism, and it's the same thing, really. I thought. And I figured once I would just double down at home to counter what the school was teaching with biblical truth that we believe in, and it wouldn't be no big deal. Then I started to research what was included. It goes deeper than what I thought. The deeper issues with the curriculum and or the school's LGBT stance seems to usurp parental rights to deal with the issues as they see fit. It is the school taking upon themselves to determine that the child can no longer be the gender they feel in school, even if it contradicts what the parents advise at home. A school nurse in a neighboring county has to keep a secret file on hand for kids who identify as another gender at school. It usurps parental rights to explore. The law states the Board of Ed shall instruct on political, economical, and social contribution of LGBT. So here's my questions. I'm sorry, I'm really nervous. The New Jersey Board of Ed hasn't put together its learning standards for this yet. It is stated in the curriculum being presented by Garden State Equality, but is not endorsed by the New Jersey Board of Education. How can a curriculum responsibly taught if it is isn't fully vetted by the state's Board of Ed. Because of this fact alone, I respectfully ask that the Pinelands pull out of the pilot program to allow the New Jersey Board of Ed to complete the learning standards so that this information is presented according to the guidelines opposed to the special interest group or any other teacher's whim. There are many Christian students, if not more, as there are the LGBT community at Pineland. The Christian students believe God created man and woman as stated in Genesis 1:7, two genders. Marriage is between a man and a woman as indicated in the New Testament. At the inclusion of the LGBTQ curriculum, you in turn exclude the Christian population at school who believe differently. Won't this in turn cause
I'm gonna give you your
reversal?
10-second warning.
Aren't you concerned about the students that believe differently, that it might be a role reversal, that the students who believe in Christianity and Christian values will be, they in turn will be bullied?
I'm sorry, your time is up.
Thank you.
My name is Michelle Collins Davies, and I'm at 36 Pebble Beach Lane. Thank you for the opportunity to speak tonight. The fact that people are so uncomfortable about the inclusion of the disabled and the LGBTQIA in the Pinelands curriculum speaks to the necessity for the state to require it to be included in the curriculum for our public schools. In following the Pinelands news and conversation in print, social media, and by watching Board of Education meetings online, it has become very apparent that the inclusion of the disabled in this is so marginalized that they are barely a part of this conversation and barely visible, which is how it used to be. Keep the disabled in their own schools and or segregated or at home. I was stunned to hear Pinelands parents refer to individuals as retarded on parent Facebook pages multiple times in the context of this conversation of changing this curriculum. And I did address it there, but I want to state it for this record, which is, it seems to me that our youth have a better capacity to accept the inclusion of all than the generations prior. In conclusion, I stand here today to support all of these additions to the curriculum. It is my hope that in educating our teachers and students, the next parent of a student with Down syndrome or any other disability will not have to educate and advocate so frequently for their child to be included in the general education and extracurricular activities. It has been a long and exhausting journey for 15 years. I also hope that I never again hear from a Pinelands graduate that a guidance counselor called their parents and essentially forced the student to tell the parents they were gay. The individual was not able to come tonight and gave me the permission to mention that. Perhaps including the contributions of the disabled and the LGBTQIA community will lead to a more supportive and inclusive community. Thank you for your support of this, the Board of Education.
Before you start, we're going to run over the 30 minutes. I'm going to extend that time. If you're in line to speak, you'll be able to speak, but no one else can get in line, okay? We're going to extend the time to hear from everyone who stood up to speak. Thank you.
My name is Kevin Keltner. I live at 5 Madeline Lane, LEH. I wanted to start by stating that I believe we have much more in common as people than we probably realize. At times like these, it's our differences that get magnified. That doesn't mean that it comes from a place of bigotry or hate towards each other. I believe that if we could sit down and converse, we would find it easily achievable to even disagree while maintaining mutual respect for each other. At the last meeting I attended, I sat and listened as legitimate concerns and questions were brought up by parents and others in the community, most of which were not addressed or answered by the board. Instead, they were shown intolerance as they were preached at from the Bible and called bullies and told our religious views were wrong and needed to change by the board. As a parent, Bible scholar, and person who works directly with students from Pinelands on the daily, I found this to be offensive and demeaning. I was implied as being afraid and believing that someone could catch gay. I can assure you, as I deal with people associated with the LGBTQ lifestyle regularly, that I have shown nothing but love and respect for them, while not necessarily agreeing with their lifestyle, but have never once tried to pray the gay out of them. I've been an ally to all students from Pinelands that I've dealt with by investing in their lives to see them grow, find purpose and identity, and be the future leaders of character and compassion, which is what I assume you want as well. As Pinelands has used our facilities at Calvary Baptist Church on hundreds of occasions for team sports practices, walkaways, cat cabarets, and other events, never once has our church questioned a student's sexuality or made anyone feel unwelcomed for their sexuality. Never once has the separation of religion and state been called into question on these times. My legitimate concern as a father with young children is on an agenda that's being shoved through a curriculum written by an advocacy group. As I'm sure those with differing views than mine would feel the same way if this issue were reversed. The bill signed by Governor Murphy states that the curriculum should be inclusive but implemented in an appropriate place in social studies and only where appropriate to portray the cultural and economic diversity of society, including the political, economic, and social contributions of persons with disabilities and lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender people, again, where appropriate. Logically, this can be done in a way that parents could opt their children out of. Not out of the culture, but out of an ideology that's being force-fed by teachers that are trusted and paid for by these parents. For parents who don't have any hatred or bigotry towards those of that lifestyle, but who hold religious views that don't allow for this lifestyle to be strongly endorsed to their children. My question is, what's stopping you as a board from making this possible?
10-second warning.
10 minutes, I could go. All right. I'm asking the board to reconsider and to stop this pilot program. Thank you.
I'm sorry, before we go on, if you got up to get on to speak, you cannot speak. Thank you. Go ahead, I'm sorry.
Good evening. Sean Brown, 100 Lighthouse.
He's not the last one. He was not there. I was
Excuse me. That woman has been standing behind you since I made my announcement. She was. I'm sorry if you didn't see her. Please go on. Thank you.
Can I just restart the time?
Restart your time.
Okay, thank you. Sean Brown, 100 Lighthouse Drive, Lily Garden. I'm a parent of 4 children, 3 currently in this district. So we have been told that the inclusive curriculum is not about sex or sex education. This, however, is simply untrue. Reading Garden State Equality's literature explicitly tells us that the entire curriculum is infused with sexuality. As written by Garden State Equality on their Professional Development Workshop webpage, they state, and I quote, "Our safe school coordinators are known throughout New Jersey for providing quality workshops on sexuality, i.e. LGBTQ identities." End quote. No LGBTQ identities, i.e. sexuality, is taught in the curriculum. Also, in the Understanding Sexuality webpage section, they explain, quote, "It also discusses the 4 different components that make up sexuality: genetic sex, gender identity, gender expression, and sexual orientation," end quote. Again, the elements of sexuality are highlighted throughout the curriculum as well. Sexuality is reserved for the rights of parents and families to teach their children, not Garden State Equality. As a school board, I would like to remind you of this. So what does the law say? This: a Board of Education shall include instruction on the political, economic, and social contributions of persons with disabilities and lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender people in an appropriate place in the curriculum. Be advised, this does not say all throughout and everywhere within the curriculum. Also, I would like to make clear, Garden State Equality's inclusive curriculum is not the law and pushes well beyond what is required of the law. I am aware that some current Pinelands teachers have written their own curriculums, and this can be completed internally if needed. So in closing, as you as the school board elected to reflect the will of the families within Pinelands Regional School District, you have an option to amend our current curriculum in place that can satisfy the requirements of the law in a much more conservative fashion that would respect the inherent rights of parents and families, and also the sexual values that we teach our children. Just with the time remaining, I just wanted to say that this isn't about people, it's about the values, it's about this curriculum that you've imposed upon all families. I just want you to consider our points and respectfully, have respect for the other side as well. Thank you.
Mike Delaprudy, 53 Brook. Nice to see you all again. As you are aware, I'm opposed to the pilot. And as an educator, I'd like to give a crash course on civics and in the process dispel 7 myths, beginning with this. Myth number 1, Pinelands must participate in a pilot. It's not true. This is an optional program using experimental material, which by the administration's own definition cannot be called curriculum. Myth number 2, Pinelands will have to use this material in September. Again, not true. Dr. Rappelette, head of the New Jersey Department of Ed, has stated that they will not endorse the GSE or any curriculum. Compliance with the law will be left to the discretion of the local school board. Myth 3, by using this material, Pinelands will save time and monies because they won't have to develop their own curriculum. Again, not true. John Oliveira, GSE, Director of Communications, has stated that the GSE material will not address the historical contributions of disabled persons. He said, quote, "It is not the GSE's place to develop a curricula for a community it does not represent. You can decide if that's discrimination, but if compliance to the law is really the concern here, you're gonna have to develop your own curricula anyway." Myth 4, a board member cannot meet privately with a member of the community. Not true. As some of you know, after meeting with the administration, thank you, Dr. McCooley, I requested to meet with some board members, and I was told this was an ethical violation. So I checked with a lawyer. Here's what he had to say. I'll quote, "I find it highly problematic to say it's unethical for any constituent to contact an elected official." I went on to ask him, hypothetically, what if someone advised the board not to speak with me? Would that be unethical? His response was, quote, "While not unusual, such behavior would be profoundly unethical." And he proceeded to debunk myth 5 by explaining to me that the board does not represent the administration. The board holds authority over the administration. It represents the citizens of this district, including the religious ones, leading to myth 6. The separation of church and state is in the Constitution. I'm sorry, it's not. It's in a letter written by President Jefferson to the churches of Danbury, Connecticut, assuring them that their religious rights would not be discriminated against by any form of government, leading to myth 7. Discriminating against someone's religious values or dismissing someone's religious values does not constitute discrimination. Oh yes, it does. According to the New Jersey Attorney General, who states, quote, "If a citizen has a sincere and meaningful moral or ethical belief which they hold to the strength of traditional religious views, then places of public accommodation such as schools cannot discriminate against them," which is exactly what you're doing here. The good news is there's a solution. Listen to the parents, listen to the community, drop the pilot program.
Good evening. My name is Alfonso Cerulli, 50 Winwood Drive, Barnegat, New Jersey. I had the privilege to teach and retire as an assistant principal out of this district. I taught here for 25 years. This will always be my second community. I can always tell you as an administrator and teacher that Pinelands School District has always did their best to not only give its students the best education possible, but each and every teacher and administrator took the time to go beyond to protect our kids and help them in every way possible. Except that this curriculum has kind of crossed the bounds. And I want to say that everybody has the right to live his or her life the way they want, but no group has the right to force others to comply with their beliefs, deprive them of their First Amendment rights, and strip the rights of parents of how to morally raise their children. This especially applies to state and federal authorities. Unfortunately, some will call this hate and bigotry, which is the furthest from the truth. As a retired educator with 35 years of middle school and high school experience, I can tell you that the mandate of this bill, 1569, will have serious psychological consequences that adolescents and young children will be exposed to in their formative years by this curriculum. This curriculum and the extra motivation of some educators will cause more cases of gender dysphoria. Somebody mentioned that when kids grow up, 60 to 90%, I saw that same statistic, will overcome this gender dysphoria. But we are opening up Pandora's box the way this is written. If you are supporting this curriculum because you think it's going to stop bullying, you are mistaken. I have 12 years experience to tell you it's a mistake. Unfortunately, many people have been bullied at one time or another, especially during their school years. As a high school administrator, I spent most of my days dealing with these issues, and I know from personal experience that you are not going to completely eradicate it. To think you will achieve such a utopia is beyond wishful thinking. There isn't an adult in this room who hasn't been bullied in some manner or form in their adulthood. This is a reality of the human condition. Now, notwithstanding and thankfully, there are laws and educational programs already in place that are utilized to deal with this problem. But to isolate sexual preference as a specifically identified issue is to ignore the many other forms of bullying.
10-second warning.
Whoa. Okay. Look, you've heard pretty much what everybody's objected to. But ladies and gentlemen of the Board of Education, I urge you to withdraw out of this pilot program. You have the authority and bear the responsibility. Thank you for your time.
Hello, I'm Steve Rhodes from Regretment, and Dr. McCooley, your board, thank you for this time. I understand you can heard a firestorm. This thing is bigger than you think. And I just want to talk about one area of concern to me and many others. You know, I preach for a living, and I always have titles for my sermons. If I was to title my little message tonight, it would be, What Lies Beneath? I don't think you're aware of the bigness of this agenda. You know, this has been going on since 1985. You know, the young lady before referred to Stonewall. That wasn't the biggest day in the homosexual world. It was 1985 when 150 gay activists got together with marketing engineers and created an agenda. They even wrote a book called The Gay Agenda, and it was the marketing of this agenda on the American population. It was written as a 400-page book, which no one knows about, nor will they admit it exists. I have the book. This agenda shows step by step on how to convert people to think. They use propaganda on the American public. And what is upsetting to me is many of the people have bought into a propaganda of this agenda, and they've let reason go by the wayside. The radical agenda made their early mark, and this is a radical agenda. All you need to do is go on the internet and look at Canada, look at England, look at Australia, look at our state. Every area is using the same identical agenda with no opt-out at all. Why is that? It is a one agenda being pushed on culture. And I think we need to really see this for what it is. I'm not a hater of people who have this lifestyle. We had a homosexual man in our church, and we embraced him and loved him, and sadly he died. I'm not that way at all. But what I'm talking about is this agenda. This is much bigger than Pinelands. It's much bigger than your school board. It's much bigger than many politicians. This has got a lot of energy and power in it. In 1987, there was an essay written, and I would encourage you to read this. It's all over the internet, this essay. It was called it was written by the homosexual pioneers, and it was called The Overhauling of Straight America. And I would challenge you to do yourself a favor and read this, and you will see what I'm saying is accurate. This was written by two men who were absolutely geniuses. His name was Marshall Kirk, other man's name was Hunter Madsen. You won't find the LGBT community even say they exist, because if people would read their writings, they would know that this is in fact an agenda that's been going on for 30 years. I really encourage you to wake up, and I want to just leave you with this quote. It's time for America to face facts, This is a lavishly funded, taxpayer subsidized sedition movement using our schools as its base of
Your time is
operations
up,
and our
sir.
children as indoctrinated agents of change.
Steve Halford, 37 Becker's Corner, West Creek. These are my own personal, well, I speak for my family and myself, not for any other agency or organization. I'm going to go out on a limb here and say that, I don't speak for everyone, but I'll go out on a limb and say that just about everybody in this room, if not everybody in this room, agrees that every person, regardless of race, sex, preference, gender, or anything else, deserves respect, excuse me, opportunity, and the same rights as everybody else regardless. Every single person. I want to thank all the LGBTQ members for joining the meeting tonight, because you know what? This is not about LGBTQ curriculum. This is about a special interest agenda and a special interest curriculum that's being pushed throughout all the schools. I have a couple of quick questions that I hopefully get the answer from eventually. One, would the board approve a new curriculum by the Billy Graham Foundation on evolution and creationism? That's a question. Would the board approve a new curriculum by the Brothers and Company on climate change and global warming? If you're not familiar with who Brothers and Company is, it's an organization, private organization, fully funded by big oil companies. So would you approve that curriculum? If the answer is no, then how is it any different than the curriculum you approved today, or in November? It's a special interest group curriculum for a specific agenda, not for a greater community. I don't know if all of you have had the opportunity or actually taken the time to review the draft 2020 Student Learning Standards curriculum that's actually out for comment. I have, every single one. Fortunately, and unfortunately in some cases, the LGBT curriculum is only included in U.S. history for America in the world for grades 9 through 12. No other curricula in any other grade level, in any other subject matter, is it included or called out. So then why are we pushing a special interest curriculum on all material for all grade levels, or for grades 8 through 12, or 6 through 12, whatever it is, for all subject matters? If the state is not requiring that, and the new draft New Jersey State Learning Standards do not include it anywhere other than 9 through 12 in U.S. American history. I'd also like to ask the simple question, where's our disabilities curriculum? Do we have a curriculum for the homicide law? Do we have a curriculum for the genocide and Holocaust law? Do we have any of that? And if we do,
10-second
then
warning.
let's bring that up as well and show that there is an interest by the board and the school to actually show all of the curriculum for all of these agendas and not just one special interest. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Lori Wersch. I live at 114 Thousand Oak Lane in Manahawkin. The reason I'm here today is I want to say thank you and commend the Board of Ed for bringing this pilot program here, for being willing to be one of the 12 schools to take part in this program. It is so important. My son is gay. My son is not, it is not a lifestyle choice. My son was born to be who he was born to be, and the only choice he made was to be true to himself. My son is not a special agenda. My son is not a special interest group. And that's all there is to it. He's a child. He's 17. He's been bullied. He's been called a homo. He's been called gay. He left a sport that he loved with all of his heart because children didn't want to share a locker room because they were afraid that he was going to look at them. If people can't see why this is so important in schools, that's the bigger problem. My son should be able to go through high school being who he is, to walk in the community openly who he is, without the hatred, the bigotry, the name calling, everything else that goes along to it. My son is Christian. My son's a good person. The only choice that he made was to be true to himself. And it really breaks my heart to hear the number of people who say that they don't have hate in their heart but continuously say he's made a lifestyle choice. Or that he's just part of a mass special agenda. He's not. He's a 17-year-old boy who's going to change the world, and I, for one, cannot wait to see what he does. So thank you for being a neighboring community that spills out into my community, that's going to make my son feel more welcome, make my son feel more a part of the world that he belongs to for the future. As a parent, as a mom, and as a community member, it means the world to me. And I'm sorry, but thank you.
My name is Danielle Hudson, 28 Lake Champlain. I ask that you vote to withdraw from the LGBTQ program. As a former Pinelands graduate, I remember learning about homosexuals being targeted along with the Jews in the Holocaust. That was already being taught as a historical fact before the pilot program and without any moral comment. The pilot program, which is written by the largest LGBTQ advocacy group, is not merely teaching history and the contributions of individuals, but it's imposing the LGBTQ ideology on our students by asserting and affirming that the LGBTQ lifestyle is good, right, and natural. This is in direct opposition to the sincere moral beliefs that I and many others in the community hold as our religious views. I'm not denying the contributions of LGBTQ individuals, nor do I wish them any harm, but is it necessary to discuss their sexuality in class? We've been learning about Leonardo da Vinci for years in schools. Today, some say he was gay. Whether he was or wasn't, I can't say. He's not here to set the record straight. If he was gay, does that change the contributions he's made? Is it really necessary to identify individuals by making guesses about their sexuality to teach about their contributions? And will a Christian student who peaceably disagrees with the LGBTQ lifestyle be penalized through grades or bullying? I understand the need to make everyone feel accepted, but the way to do that is not to force acceptance of a certain group. There are so many differing views in society today that you will always find someone who disagrees with you. So what do? We need to teach respect of all people. I don't have to agree with you, nor you have to agree with me, but we do have to respect each other. So I respectfully ask that you withdraw from the pilot program, or at least restrict the material to an appropriate place in the curriculum so that parents with deeply held religious views can opt out or have modified lessons that exclude sexual discussions. Thank you.
I'm Dan McKillop, pastor of New Life Community Church, 595 Portertown Drive. Dr. McCooley, you and I talked about this mental health, and you brought it up today. I was just handed this article on the way in. I just want to say is because we do have these mental health issues that we have to get this particular issue right, or we're going to continue the pain that we've started, has been started. Quoting from the Garden State Equality website, they say, starting today, we're kicking off the LGBTQ inclusive curriculum in 12 New Jersey schools who are participating in our new curriculum pilot program. It's been said to me that, in fact, this is not a curriculum. Unfortunately, your partners are saying otherwise. So not only are they calling it a curriculum, they're calling it lesson planning. Again, quoting, over the last year, our team has been hard at work developing a robust set of lessons plans that teach the next generation of youth about the political, social, and economic contributions of LGBTQ people. The curriculum has been developed, handed over to the advocacy group with no input or no involvement of parents or community leadership other than what is happening now. We're told that teachers are the ones that are going to be implementing the curriculum, non-curriculum, but the source of the training information is a single source, and they quote, we're also providing each school with professional development trainings, parent education workshops, and a curriculum coach to support them over the next 6 months. So, according to your partners, they are in control of this, although I do believe you, Dr. McCooley, that you have leeway. My question is, what mechanisms are in place over the next 6 months that will include the parents and the community leadership in the development of this program? What mechanisms do you have in place for the community to assess the program? At this point, to my knowledge, there are none. And since this is a pilot program, the time of testing and the time of adjusting, this should be part of that program, and it should involve community and parents. Yet the pilot's begun with very limited input, and according again to the GSE website, you've already chosen your partners. They say, we believe through positive partnerships with staff members, students, families, and community members, we can successfully support school districts in developing LGBTQ inclusive curriculum.
I'll give you a 10-second warning.
What inclusion? What part of our community was included in this curriculum? Clearly, we were not until these meetings. I ask you to reconsider this.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Reverend John Fortune. I live at 310 Chicago Avenue in Carver City, and I am I am an ordained Unitarian Universalist minister, and as part of my training to become a minister, I had to demonstrate competencies in Christianity, Judaism, Islam, Buddhism, as well as a variety of earth-based religious doctrines and humanism. And I can tell you that all of those religious traditions, none of them say to push people away if they're different. We'll get to that in a minute. In addition to being a minister, I'm also a trained and certified sexuality and gender educator. I'm certified through the Our Whole Lives Lifespan Sexuality curriculum, developed in a joint project between the Unitarian Universalist and United Church of Christ denominations. It is a scientifically accurate, age-appropriate, and empowering lifespan curriculum for children, youth, and adults, and now even recently a senior, which is designated as 50 and older, which I maybe take issue with, curriculum. And I am one of 2 out transgender ministers in New Jersey. And I will tell you that representation matters. My congregation has 2 significant signs out by the roadside. One says Black Lives Matter, and the other is a rainbow flag. And periodically, they both are defaced. Our flag gets ripped down on the regular. We've had to install a bunch of new security cameras. We buy flags in bulk now. We just have a big box of them. And we replace it as soon as it gets torn down because it matters to people who drive by. I've talked to people here tonight. I've talked to people in other parts of my life and just walking through town who say, oh, I always look for that when I drive by. It lets people know that they're not alone. And it lets queer kids know that there's a church that can welcome them. And that's important. Years ago, images in textbooks, when I was growing up.
I'm going to give you a 10-second warning.
Oh, darn.
No.
It was good, too.
You're wasting your time.
Thank you so much for being forward-thinking.
Thank you.
Thank you for allowing people to comment. I'm not going to talk about the curriculum directly. I just want to share part of my life that was impacted by the gay community. When I was in my teens, my mom raised me to be not non-prejudicial, races, creeds, anything. I was naive. They used to bully me and throw me in lockers at school because I was one of the first of 3 who had long hair. I like music, but I like girls. So I went to New York City, started playing my folk music. What I didn't know is there's a shadow entity of predators out there that from the gay community. I was molested several times, and I was taken under their wing. They fed me, they gave me a place to stay and live, they gave me drugs. For a time, I became a male prostitute in Atlantic City, although I fortunately was able to shed that quickly. What you don't know about is this openness and this idea of acceptance. That's fine. I believe in that. And I'm a born-again Christian. And nowhere in the Bible says to persecute people for what they are and what they believe. But I want to caution you, and give you a warning. If you make it so that these children feel like they're comfortable approaching gay people and they move out in cities, in the dark corners, beware.
Hi, my name is Shannon Duffy. I live at 180 Westchester Drive in Little Lake Harbor. I identify as bisexual. I'm thankful that I have a loving family that supports me, but not everyone is so lucky. Bringing LGBTQIA+ historical figures into the curriculum gives students space to feel seen and respected at school. This is even more important if they do not have that support at home. Harassment and bullying of LGBT youth dramatically increases suicide and self-harm rates. Suicide is the second leading cause of death among young people from age 10 to 24. LGBT youth are almost 5 times as likely to have attempted suicide. This issue can be life or death. It is unacceptable to treat anyone as less than a person because of their sexual orientation, gender, or ability status. The medical community is in agreement that the best treatment for gender dysphoria is transitioning to their preferred gender. I would like to ask the parents in the room, what would you do if your child came out to you as gay? Would you prefer that they become a statistic and join the many queer youth that are homeless? We all know that this isn't really about special interests. This is not an issue of differing belief systems. It is an issue of treating people with humanity and respect. If this curriculum makes a difference to even one student and makes them feel more safe, welcome, and comfortable, all of this will be worth it. We will not let hate win over love. Thank you.
All right, so before Betty Ann takes over again, I'm going to attempt to answer some of the questions that I think came out of that. And once again, if your question is not answered in its entirety, please reach out to me and we can meet. I did appreciate all the meetings I've had so far with parents, community members, and local religious leaders. I feel the meetings were productive. I just want to clarify a couple of things, and I think it will answer your questions. The next 6-month time frame, I have discussed this with many of you that I've met with, that we are welcoming you to come in the summer. Once we get through the pilot, we're going to give feedback to the New Jersey Department of Education, and we'd like to meet with parents. We'd like to meet with local community members, whether they be religious or not, and go over some of the sample lessons that we're planning to infuse into the curriculum for next school year. We do curriculum work every summer regardless, and we would like you to be a part of that to give your feedback. I know that we've gone back and forth of whether it is a curriculum or not. This is not a boxed set of lessons that someone has to take off the shelf and say, now we're going to do the LGBTQ curriculum. There are lessons that are altered that we have been currently teaching for many years in Pinelands. I met with the pilot teachers recently with Ms. Frasca, and we got some feedback on some of the lessons that they may have tried so far in regards to LGBTQ. And some of the feedback we got was, I've been teaching this lesson forever, it's nothing new. One of the teachers described a math lesson in which instead of the word problem having a mom and a dad, the lesson had 2 moms, and they took their kids out for ice cream, and it was about how much money they spent, and guess what? The kids solved the math problem. The fact that there was 2 moms in the problem really never even came up because to our students, this is second nature and normal. In regards to the GSC, and I know that is a bone of contention with a lot of the religious organizations, the GSC worked with the New Jersey Department of Education to fund this project. And by funding it, they hired current teachers in New Jersey to take lessons that they currently taught and have been teaching for years and alter them to be more reflective of an inclusive environment. So these were not lessons or a curriculum developed solely by someone that works for the GSC. These were New Jersey teachers that created these lessons. I think I covered the questions, and once again, if not, you can always reach out to me.
All right, thank you. With that, we're going to move on to board forum. I'll start on my left. Karen, please.
Yes, thank you all for coming again tonight. I'd like to thank our volunteers that we approved to help out in our school, and thank you to our community members for their donations. I would like to comment on the community input. Oh, am I on there? I would like to comment on the community input. I've listened, I've taken it in. Dr. McCooley has shared information with the board. I've reviewed the lesson plans online. I would like to say, to a large degree, I think the pilot is missing the boat when it and really just missing the mark on highlighting the contributions of this community. We heard tonight, we want representation of historical figures. Having 2 gay moms in a math question does not identify the political, societal, and economic contributions, which is what the bill requires. It also misses the mark on disability. There is not one reference that I saw in any of the documents that references the disabled community. And I think for both of those reasons, we're missing the mark. The pilot seems to have moved away from these areas and moved towards inclusion. How could inclusion be bad, right? Inclusion is good. Typically, in the world where I live and work, inclusion is not just inclusion by itself, it's diversity and inclusion. And it's really that diversity of thought and that welcoming of thought and inclusion. And that's how you really get to what I think is the best answer. I feel we're including one group and excluding another. And I'm not confident at this stage that we're making any progress with including anyone. I feel like we're including some, excluding others. We can hear it tonight. And I would really encourage our administration, again, the intent of the law is to highlight the contributions of these individuals so that people can see them in themselves, can respect others, and have a better sense of appreciation for that. I don't see it. I do feel like it's moved away from that. And I'll just leave it at that.
I'd like to thank everyone for coming this evening and getting up and speaking. Some of you I know had a very difficult time speaking and had some very heartfelt words. I appreciate what you've said. I've listened to everything that you've said. I've listened over the last couple months. I have to honestly say, from my perspective, and I can't speak for any other board member here but myself, I've taken a look at what has been provided to us. I have done the research like you have, and I've also taken a look at what our policy says, and it does say that we are to make decisions in the best interest of all students, not on special interest groups or those that have certain beliefs. Garden State Equity, yes, has been, I don't want to say hired, but sought out with the grant monies to help schools develop and be part of the birth of this new law or this mandate. I have to honestly say that I actually think pilot programs are good. As a teacher here at Pinelands for 35 years before I retired, this is not the first pilot program that we have been a part of. We were a pilot program for special education and inclusion, which translates into in-class support, because I was the teacher that helped run that. And I was part of that program. And some of the same difficulties that we're seeing today and some of the same comments, it's nothing new. We saw the same thing back during the 90s when this inclusion pilot program was here. Only people, it was a different point of view. They were pulling their children out of the class because they thought we were dumbing down the program. They spoke at board meetings, they spoke eloquently. But what they didn't know was what was really going on. Now, I can understand listening to and hearing that you want to be part of this process. And I agree. I absolutely agree. And I'm actually very happy to hear that Dr. McCooley this summer, after the pilot program is done, because that's what it is, it's a pilot. It's a pick and choose of what works best for our community and our students based on our dynamics. Just like the other 11 schools are doing that right now. I'm happy to hear that you as parents and community members are going to be part of that, and you've been invited to what's going to be put together. But part of a pilot program is we're here on the ground floor to determine what is best for our students. And I have to put the faith in our administration and our teachers that they're going to do just that. Now, have I seen every single lesson? No. I've seen exactly what you have seen. And like I said, I have to have faith in our administration and teachers that they're going to pick and choose what's best for our students. They're going to bring that information to the table with the other 11 districts to complete something to present to the Department of Education, which then will be the blanket curriculum lessons, whatever you want to call them, for the entire state. And that's the beauty of a pilot program. And I feel that us being on the ground floor is going to help just that. I think we are unique. We have a very unique community. Some of the other schools that are involved in this have, there's more minorities included in their community. There's more diversity. So I think we're going to bring a very special, unique point of view when they sit down and discuss what is working best. And I do have faith in them that they're going to do that. But I'm also glad to hear that you're going to be part of that this summer. That really makes me happy, and I thank you for saying that. So at this point in time, I want to thank you for your concerns. I have listened to every single one. I was not here and present at the November meeting when this was voted on, but I support the majority board decision at that time. In closing, there's a few things I'd like to say about what went on here this evening. First of all, Melissa, thank you for your mid-year report, especially on some of the programs that we initiated this year. I appreciate that. But Nick, thank you for the budget update and where we're moving forward. Vivian, thank you for letting me know who's on the budget committee. Who's the chair, by the way?
I have not appointed them as of yet.
All right, I forgot to ask that question, but thank you.
I don't want to scare anybody off.
Okay. I want to congratulate the governor's recipients here this evening from both schools. Ms. Frasca, thank you for that presentation. It's probably the first time that I've known, when I worked here for 35 years, that people were recognized the way they should be. And I want to thank you for that. That was excellent. In closing, I just want to bring up that, and it was actually emailed to the board today in a narrative form, but there was an article in the Philadelphia Inquirer today on our legacy program, better known as our Wildcat Shack, which is open to all of our students and community members and offers many services for them, whether that be clothing, food donations, washing and drying their clothes. They can come in on the hours that it's open. It was a very well done article. And I actually want to commend the 3 staff people that were mentioned in the article that I know were the backbone in helping get that started. And that is Allison Lawrence, who is one of our PE teachers, Kathy Schaefer, who is a history teacher, and I know now she's doing the Orton-Gillingham program, and Dan Grasso. I know there's many, many other staff and administration that have been part of that in getting it off the ground, and I want to thank them for that, because I think in this community it was well needed, and it certainly has serviced many, many of our families and our children. So thank you all. It was a very well-written article. It was actually put out today, Philadelphia Inquirer, if you want to take a look at it. Thank you all for coming, and hopefully we see just as many at next month's meeting. Thank you. Sorry I was so long.
Thank you, Mrs. Chambers, and I echo the sentiments of my two fellow board members. I just would like to see that everyone is included in what we are going to do moving forward with this program. We did not make the law. We have to implement what they are stating. But I want to see that everyone's thoughts and how this could be moved forward in a better way is accomplished. And I think that would be the best thing for the healing of this community, is for everyone to work and strive towards doing what we need to do, but in a way that everyone is thought of. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Williams. Mr. Rosette?
That's a lot to take in. I want to thank everyone for coming. Congratulations to our award winners and students of the month. And as for the curriculum, I've listened to everything. It's definitely a lot of information to take in. And I really wish I could just wave a magic wand and make everybody happy. But compromise is important here. I just wanted to say that, I think Ms. Chambers said it the best. It's a pilot program, and we're trying to make it work the best way we can possible, and your involvement just makes it easier for everybody. I believe in transparency. I want you all involved. Try to make it easy, try to appease everybody, and try to include everybody as much as possible. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Harper?
I have a few, I guess, important takeaways for me in regards to the LGBTQ pilot and the concerns. I think that, first of all, thank you everyone for coming out and sharing your voices and stories and concerns. And the first point to that is you shared them is because you wanted to be represented. Sorry, is that better? And as it was stated before, representation matters. A second point that I'd like to point out is that I'm not really sure how inclusion of some automatically translate to exclusion of others. The LGBTQ pilot is just one resource of many that is being utilized to fulfill our legal obligation with the mandate that has been passed, as well as our commitment to all students. Similar to the Holocaust and homicide mandates, we don't use just one book, one lesson, one resource. We have a variety of resources. And I've said this to the board, especially after the training and the community meeting, that I don't necessarily agree with this pilot being referred to as a curriculum. By definition, it is not a curriculum. The lesson topics don't even fulfill the definition of an actual lesson plan by the standards of Pinelands and our board, but they are topics that our teachers can infuse, and I think that it being more broad in general is a benefit, so that there is no exclusion and that everybody can be considered.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'd also like to thank everyone for attending tonight. And I would like to echo what Mrs. Chambers said. I agree with a lot of what you said. I look at this pilot program. I sat with, and at the meeting at the Calvary Baptist Church when they had their group together, and I sat with an open mind and listened to, I believe it was 5 speakers. I also attended the DOE that came down here with Garden State. I listened to their presentation. I got to say that they presented to the public. I thought it was very clear and concise of what it's going to be. I don't see any issue in talking about the achievements of the LGBTQ community. But also, I also don't believe it should be a stepping stone for a teacher to run with it and changing it to whatever their ideology is. That's something that I would not appreciate or stand for as a board member. But I see nothing wrong with it. I learned a lot, I read a lot, I brushed off my old Bible studies. I read Leviticus again, Genesis, I read took many of those classes. So I'm trying to look at it as being as objective as I can be, and with all the information that was given to me, I see no issue with it. And as it's developed with the teachers in the summertime in June, we'll sit back and we'll discuss it again. My only question is, last month, I heard that the board wasn't really aware of what the pilot program was. And I know when I was in Little Lake Harbor, when I was president of the board, any kind of initiative that we had, the president and vice president would sit with either the superintendent, administrators, and discuss it. So I know it was passed in November before I sat here. Was it ever discussed with the board, or the president or vice president ever have a meeting with the administration about the LGBTQ?
So yeah, I mean, that information was sent to the board recently, the timeline of everything that occurred, and when Sue and Pat were president, vice president, we would meet regardless to go over the agendas. And I believe we did have a meeting to discuss the pilot and when it was approved at that time,
Yes.
so yes.
Point of clarification, yes.
There wasn't
We
yeah.
received the first mailing, Sue and I did, on October 21st, that we were a semifinalist.
I'm sorry, what was the date?
Semifinalist,
No, the date.
October 21st.
21st, okay.
Okay, from there, we did contact Dr. McCooley, because we had some questions. We knew the board would have some questions, because it was the first we were hearing about, we were even part of this. The second email came out that we were actually selected, and that was on or about October 29th. Okay, I have the emails, okay, at home. And the whole board was sent that email. Dr. McCooley and the former president and I, we met at our regular draft agenda meeting on November 2nd to discuss this further. There seemed to be a glitch in the system with what the board was able to see as far as administrative files at that time. There were many glitches because I know that our agenda links, sometimes we weren't able to access through the summer. Dr. McCooley thought that the board had access to those files. None of us saw it. I didn't.
Well, that was the August meeting when,
Right.
that was
in
junior
August.
high's August board agenda.
Right.
And the agenda item was LGBTQ pilot, and then the hyperlink, from what I understand, wasn't opening for some board
Correct.
members. But it was on the August junior high board agenda.
So when we met with her, we went over what files we couldn't see. The August one came up, the link was there, and by the way, I've still asked for permission to that link, I still haven't gotten it yet, so.
And that
Still can't get on.
Well, wait a minute, let me finish. So then, the other months, for September, October, November wasn't there yet. We talked about what would be the best way for the board to access those because we didn't have access to that information. We talked about it at the meeting. There were some suggestions made on how to access it on the board drive on the left-hand column. Dr. McCooley thought it was a good suggestion. When I went home, we emailed back and forth because she wanted to know what I could see at that point. It still wasn't accessible by me personally. She worked on it again. I know she worked very hard on it on Saturday, November 2nd. And by November 2nd, we were all able to see the files. They're
From
set up
August,
now.
yeah, from
Yes.
August.
From back in August, and then September and October went on, and then since then they've gone on.
Awesome. So I guess Sue also gave a board update, right? After your meeting, right?
And at the November meeting.
President's meeting, president update.
At the November meeting?
Well, usually after you have
She gives, like, a
that
weekly
meeting, you usually. give
Right,
the
well,
board,
she
usually give the
gave her
president update.
updates every week.
Every
So
week, okay.
from-
I just want to be clear, because I'm
Right,
coming onto the
from
board.
that-
What was approved in November, I'm now sitting as a board member here, so I'm
Right.
just trying to educate
This
myself what the
board-
prior board did
Unless
while I
there's
sit here.
somebody
That's all.
that knew about the program, that we were even in the running to be a finalist and then were selected. If someone else knew before October 21st and then again on October 30th, let me know, because
The only thing I remember was Dr. Clark talking about it at the
retreat.
She mentioned that there was going to be a lesbian gay project that she was applying for, but she didn't have the information yet because she didn't know if she was gonna be able to do it, and I forget what else she said. Do you guys remember?
No, those are the email threads
she actually put the email thread, that was the attachment from August.
Yeah.
That was on the board
Can you
report.
make sure it's open? I personally can't
So-
open it, but
Yeah, I don't know
in
why
that
you're not.
August report,
Yeah.
I believe it was Mr. Shore's
It was
August
his
report.
secretary that's actually was the first one to do it on the board.
Right. I know I mentioned it to you when I called you a couple weeks, a week and a half ago. I tried to get it today. I've been away for 2 weeks, so
Yeah,
I
I don't know
still.
why you're not having access to that.
I've asked for.
Well, Mrs. Chambers, thank you for.
Yeah, I hope that clears
It
it
does,
up,
it
and
does,
if
it really does.
anyone knew about it before those dates, please let me know, because
All right, August, you want to?
Was the board still trying to open that at the November
I'm not
meeting?
even done
I
speaking
have
yet.
no
I mean,
idea.
I'm still in the
Okay.
middle of
Yeah,
a
No, she
board
just said it was
forum.
available on Saturday.
How does this
by
work?
November 2nd,
How does this work? Can I please? get
Melissa
on?
worked
Can I
very
finish?
hard, and everything was okay.
August has the floor, please. Thank you.
I like
And that's the
dialogue.
time-
but
that's the
Just like to
timeline.
finish. I appreciate you filling
No,
me in.
that
on
is the
Thank
timeline.
you. And that's
And
all I
I
have.
have
Thank
the
you very much.
emails to.
First, I want to congratulate all the little kiddos and student of the month, especially my boy. Proud mom. Second, I want to speak more to the gay kids in this community and the kids with disabilities. The word belief was thrown out a lot. I believe in you. Every single one of you. Whether you're gay, straight, I don't care. I believe in you. So if you have any doubt about any one of these people, don't let that negativity get in. Because I got you. Okay? I got you. Your love that you're gonna have or already have is no less than anyone else's. It's the same love. I promise. I'm here. I know. I'm old. I've been
No,
there.
you're not.
Okay? But your love, just keep it close. It's special. It's special because you had to fight for it. For all the allies in this community, thank you. They need you. All of them need you. Thank you so much.
Thanks everybody for coming and for contributing, and congratulations to our students of the month and our governor's educators of the year awards. Pat, thank you for everything that you said, because especially since, you know, you were here and you were here through the special ed. I mean, like Betty Ann said last time, you know, it takes a lot of times to make these things change, and my eyes are closed, I don't know why, so that's all I have. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Kim. I'd like to thank everyone who came out to speak tonight. I appreciate you being respectful to each other. I was a little concerned, and I was very pleased to see that everybody was able to speak their mind and be respectful. I'd like to also congratulate the Teachers of the Year, Professionals of the Year. It's always great to see the human side of teaching, how much our teachers invest in our students and what it means to them, and it's nice to be able to recognize that. I'd also like to, and Pat brought it up, I had an opportunity to read the article today in the Enquirer about the Legacy Center, the Wildcat Shack. What an inspiration, and what a just another innovative, fantastic thing that's happening here at Pinelands that is going to help our students feel more acceptable here, whether it's clean clothes or a pair of shoes that fit, whatever the case may be. And I'm tickled that Pat called out the teachers that were behind that. But I think it's important to also commend the leadership here at Pinelands. Sitting here and doing this job as a volunteer and working with our administrators here is not an easy task. There's so much that goes on. If you listen to Dr. McCoy tonight when she was talking about some of her staff, I wrote the words down she used: amazing, great, and fantastic. That's a sign of a good leader, somebody who rewards their staff and recognizes their staff for their contributions. And I think it's important that we recognize our administrative staff here for everything that they're doing. They take a lot of heat, but there are amazing things going on here at Pinelands, and it has to do with the leadership that we have here. And I think it's important that we don't lose sight of that. I know I said it before, we're in good hands, and I continue to believe that. With that, a motion to adjourn?
Motion.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? 8:43.